Okay, we start a new series of retro reviews of Star Trek Deep Space Nine, beginning with parts 1 and 2 of The Emissary. After this. Hello out there, I'm the oldest nerd. Today we're talking about Star Trek Deep Space Nine and their first episode, and second episode for that matter, The Emissary. Now, I was a reluctant viewer of Deep Space Nine after quite a few years of Star Trek The Next Generation. One of the things I loved about Star Trek was to be able to go on the ride. And there is a matter of feeling like you're on the ship with everybody else. And this whole idea of putting it on a space station, stuck in one place, and the nature of it at first hit a sour note with me. Here is someone who didn't even want to be there. We establish early on in the first episode that Sisko was assigned to this outpost 3 years after the events of Wolf 359, in which Picard had been absconded with by the Borg and created Locutus. And Sisko, our main character, is someone that has quite a grudge against Picard in the same way that in a later series, Captain Shaw had that same grudge against him in the third season of Picard. However, this was such a dark and stationary kind of thing. The only thing that kept me watching really was Chief O'Brien. He was a character that was Next Generation episode, even without a name. He was just the con officer, and later the transporter chief, and they finally gave him a name. But here he plays a major part. He is the head of operations, and his job is going to be trying to put together a pretty broken space station. And so that was kind of enough to keep me on, and I watched a few shows of the first season, kind of lost interest, and continued on with Next Generation. And by the end of Next Generation, there was Worf going over to DS9, and so I returned to it for a certain amount of time there, and enjoyed it because I really do enjoy Michael Dorn's performances, no matter what he's doing. So I'm coming into this with new eyes, with a fresh perspective, and an understanding that in the intervening years, Deep Space Nine was a pioneer in the type of storytelling that is now fairly normal, in that you have an overarching character and plot arc that spans a significant period of time. So that's where we're going into it, looking at it from our current perspective and seeing how it was done. There were a number of good lines in the first episode as they're getting acquainted with each other. The first encounter with Quark that Sisko has, and Odo saying pretty much to the camera, at first I thought I wasn't going to like him. And later, in his meeting with Kai Opaka, the head spiritual leader of the Bajorans, one who does not want to be among us is destined to be the emissary. Now, that didn't mean anything from the very first, but as we know, the emissary was a prophet, or a person that was kind of the Bajoran's Moses, someone who was not necessarily a deep believer, but someone who was facilitating the movement of the people to their religion, and even though that Sisko never became much of a true believer in it all, or even thinking it was the emissary, certainly Major Kira did, and a lot of the Bajoran people did, which made him a very important character going through the entire arc of this series. And We know a few things of what we found, that the Deep Space Nine is just a recent denotation by Starfleet, who's been called in to help administrate the area on behalf of the Bajoran people. So while we have a Starfleet commander here, it's not really a Starfleet outpost. Not really. It's kind of a starbase, but not exactly. Now, with the wormhole discovery and the events of this episode, it's become a major crossroads for exploration and commerce that will keep the story going. So we know that there have been 9 orbs that have been sent from what the Bajorans call the prophets. These are non-linear time beings that live inside this constructed wormhole. And these 9 orbs were sent out over a period of 10,000 years, and they only have 1 of them left. There was 8 of them that were stolen by the Cardassians. And the Federation leaves them with 3 runabouts. We find out these are rather large shuttlecrafts. They were used once in the original, in the Next Generation, for one episode where Picard is caught returning to the Enterprise and caught in a time loop. But we won't go there. Anyway, 3 runabouts. There is the Rio Grande, the Yangtze Tian, and named after rivers, interestingly. And I forget what the 3rd one is, and they add other vehicles to it later on. But anyway, that's what we know about it. That's what we've learned in this first episode. And what I want to say about it is that I did not realize at the time, because it's taking in all of this information, trying to figure out who they are and what they're doing and why, and not noticing the quality of the acting. Avery Brooks may be the best actor I've ever seen in a Star Trek story. The fact of the matter is that he was able to convey this emotion of loss, of regret, of pent-up anger, of love for his son, of his sense of duty, and his willingness to adapt. And I think that's a lot said out of a single actor. The supporting cast is great. Alexander Siddig, who at this point was billed as Siddig Al-Falil, plays the Doctor, who is going to be a much more interesting character as time goes on. Right now, he's kind of a love interest for Dax, played by Terry Farrell, who, of the 2 main character Daxes on DS9, I really liked the most. And she had showed her range by some of the things that she was able to do. She was able to break through certain boundaries that attractive women in Star Trek have not been able to avoid by having this internal creature that's over 300 years old. It was an interesting conceit in order to make her a more developed character than she would seem. And then with the O'Brien, of course, it becomes someone who obviously had many, many skills that just weren't shown well on the Enterprise. And it makes it an interesting cast. Renee Bajor with as Odo plays kind of the town sheriff and plays that to the hilt. And, of course, Armin Shimmerman as Quark leads to not only comic relief, but a character study into people that are different than us, but not so different, huh? So this is, I'm looking forward to talking with you about the various episodes of this series, and I hope that you'll watch along and let me know what you think about it as well. We have a place down below for you to put your comments, and I encourage you to do so and contribute to our conversation here. And in the meantime, if you have not subscribed to this channel, please do so. We're going to do all 7 seasons of Deep Space Nine, and that's going to take a little while, but we'll do it every week on Tuesday. On Wednesday. We will do this every week on Tuesday. We'll have a retro review of Star Trek The Original Series on Wednesday. The new shows that are coming out we will do on Thursday and Friday. So we hope that you will join us for all of these things, and your subscription would be much appreciated. Also, click a like if you will, please. And until we talk again, don't go far.